You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me here today on this Motivation and Mindset Monday. It's a beautiful morning here in Boston, and as I'm, really thinking about the topic that I wanted to bring you for today's show, and I'm just kind of looking out my window. It's a beautiful day. The sun's out. I can actually hear the birds. It's fantastic. But it leads me back to believing and understanding that in order to get the life that you want, like in order to truly enjoy that type of happiness and gratitude and all the things that I've worked so hard for in my life and that I try to teach to others, is that initially, and this is the hard part, initially, you have to go through some type of pain, some type of suffering. And that seems to be a lot of what people are running away from. It's this human condition that humans are prone to suffering. But then we seem to spend our entire life trying to remove this suffering from our daily life, the occurrences that we move through on a daily basis. But here's the interesting thing, and this is something that I want you to think about. This is a quote that I heard, and I really wish that I could attribute it to the proper author. So if you know who wrote this quote or who spoke this quote, just go to Instagram, go to Stephen Cabral, let me know. But it's this, is that you are guaranteed to suffer from one of two pains in life. And that's going to be today's topic of discussion on this Motivation and Mindset Monday. Is that, first of all, just understand that, and this is a Buddhist thing. And again, I used to be so against Buddhism. I'm like, it's all about suffering and the human condition. And I didn't get it. I was like, there's no such thing as suffering. We need to get away from that. Well, here's the deal. Once I accepted that there are hardships in life is up and down. It really is. Like Jim Rohn spoke about this. He talked about the seasons of life, right? Of that we get the planting in the spring of when we're doing the work, and then we get to enjoy that great weather of summer, and then the harvesting of the fall, and we go through our darker times in the winter. And I'm like, I don't want any dark times. I don't want the winter. And I would push against that. But when I realized that is the ebb and flow of life, that is the Tao, right? They've talked about this from the beginning of time. The yin-yang symbol, half is dark, half is light. And I don't think that half has to be dark, but there's the balance between the two. There's good and there's evil, right? There's love and then there's hate. There's all of those things. There's always the balance. So when I started to realize, you're right, that there is some suffering in life. And that we can't escape that, whether it's the death of a loved one, the breakup of a relationship, of leaving a job or getting fired from a job that we love, or not knowing what to do with our life, or finding out some really bad news, whatever it might be, those are hardships. Those are real suffering. And again, then there's minor levels to that as well. You're guaranteed for there to be some suffering in life. This is going to be a motivation and mindset-based Monday show, but here's the deal. We have to get to that. We have to first understand, and this was important for me, so it might be important for you, is that there is going to be some suffering in life, but you get to choose, all right? Now, you don't get to choose always when a loved one passes away or other things that happen in life, but you get to choose one of these two things. So if we know that we're guaranteed to suffer, there's two things we have to look at. We have to understand that we get to control a large part of that, and that's through this. There's the pain of suffering, of regret that you can have in life, and there's the pain and suffering that also comes from self-discipline of having to do things in life that you don't necessarily want to do. And that's what I want to focus on today. So the regret in life is really, really important to look at first. I know a lot of people. I work with a lot of people in my practice of all different ages. And when I get to chat with people in their 80s and even 90s, and our oldest wellness client over here, 104, 105 years old, is a lot of what they speak about. Not all of them, because that's why I get to see the juxtaposition. a lot of what they speak about is what they wish they had done in life. That's real suffering. It's every day thinking about in your last 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20 years of life, when you don't necessarily have the energy, the drive, the ambition, the health, any one of those things that you did not do the things that you wanted to accomplish in life or have in life. It could be anything. Again, I'm not here to tell you what's important to you. That's for you to decide. You need to come up with that bucket list yourself. And again, go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. Today's episode is 871, I believe. And again, we have 870 podcasts before of topics. You can type in bucket list. And that is a show on how to create the things in life that have meaning to you. That if you did not do those, you would have massive regret. That would cause you great suffering in life. And you might be suffering right now because of that. Maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s saying, I regret not doing this. Well, here's the nice thing. If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you still have time. Like, that's the great thing. And I'm not saying you don't have time in your 80s, but you have a lot more time, at least for right now, that you do have in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, because you have at least a decade. You've at least a decade, probably more like 2 decades minimum, right? Even if you're in your 70s, you can live to your 90s. Like, again, check out tomorrow's show on how to cheat death. I think you're going to find that show enlightening. Yeah, I really believe that. And that's why I believe that, the 78 years old or so of life expectancy, we can bring that way up if we're willing to do the specific things that I talk about tomorrow. All right, but what I need you to do is first I need to create this pain and suffering of regret. What is it right now that you feel in your heart, not your brain, but your heart, that you regret not doing so far in life, or that you would regret not doing in 10 years from now, okay? I need you to write those down. That has to be your beacon. It has to be your lighthouse. Like, that has to be the thing shining in the distance that you are looking at, that you're focused on, and that you're understanding that it might not happen tomorrow or even next year, but you're working towards that, right? So for many, many years, I wasn't able to get my message out in the way that I wanted to. I didn't know how. I didn't have the proper platform, but I knew that one day I wanted to do that. But in the meantime, I was working towards it, right? I was a personal trainer in college and out of college. And I then really got deep into nutrition, even before that. And then I became a strength and conditioning coach. And then I got more into health coaching, right? And like advanced nutrition. And then after that, went back to school, became a naturopathic doctor. And then I opened a wellness center. And then after that, I started the podcast. And that allowed me to basically reach a greater audience. All of those things happened over years. And now I'm at the point where I'm saying, okay, I'm realizing the vision of me being a teacher. Because my vision was never like, oh, I want to be this, and this. My vision was always to teach to a greater audience. And I would have regretted that if I hadn't been able to do it. Now, I still haven't reached that beacon in the distance because there's more that I want to do. A lot of people don't know this, and I don't think that I've ever shared this publicly, but I want to share more of my hopes and dreams with you so that they get you to dream as big as you want, right? Because maybe I don't have the hugest dreams in the entire world, but they're big for me. They're big for me, and that's all that I need. All that matters is what we care about deep inside, okay? Again, not from a selfish standpoint, but from a selfless standpoint, because your true wants and needs are usually something to do with service. Service to your family, service to your parents, service to your church, service to your community, right? Or service to the greater whole of the world. So mine, they're things that mean a lot to me. They do. They mean a lot to me. They give me purpose, right? They give me energy and passion. But really what I'm trying to do is serve a greater audience. But at the same time, I'm serving me because it's what I want as well. So in the future, I want to create a TV show. Now, it's not going to be a TV show because TV is on its way out. It's going to be an online TV show. And I'm going to have guests, and I'm going to have teaching segments, and I'm going to have all of those things that I want families and individuals and everyone to watch. It's going to be health education that they don't teach you in school, that every single person needs growing up. Because again, a lot of parents, they won't do it themselves, but they're giving their kids mac and cheese, hot dogs, and all of these things. And I'm not coming down on you. I'm not coming down on you if you do that for your children. But these are foods that are slowly making children sick. But parents don't really get it because it hasn't been taught. They're like, well, I did it as a kid. Yes, you did. But you don't have to do that for your kids. And yes, once a week you can do it. Okay, no big deal. But a lot of times it's easy and it's a go-to, right? But you wouldn't do it for your body. You know it's not that healthy. Those are kids' foods. No, they're not. They're not. We made that up. Kids' foods are easy to digest adult foods, right? Just make them easier to digest. Will my 3-year-old eat a big salad? No, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense for her. She doesn't have that type of digestive capacity, but she crushes broccoli, she takes that down. And that's because we've always tried to give that to her. Or we cook spinach, or we give her vegetables that she has a palate for right now, right? We're working those things in. So what I'm saying is I want to be able to teach a lot of those things. A lot of parents think they need to use antibiotics for themselves or when they get a cold, right? Well, I can teach otherwise. I can teach how to boost the immune system to allow the body to heal naturally. So for myself, even though I've developed my voice, like I have the podcast, again, our goal is to reach 1 million people a month and we're on our way. But the goals are larger because the goal for me is to say, how far can I push this? How many people can I reach? Personal goal of mine. At the same time, providing service. I'm about to bring this full circle in a second. It would be a regret of mine if I did not create that online TV show. But when is it going to happen? I don't know yet. But I feel good that I'm going to make it happen, that it will happen. Right now, I don't have the studio. I don't have the space. I don't have any of those things. But that's okay. I'm okay with that because that is something that I know that I'm going to work towards. But if I didn't do it, it's a regret. With family, okay? I said this to myself from the very beginning when I had children. And I didn't do a good job of it for the first couple of years. I can be honest with you. I would regret not being home having dinner with my family at least 6 out of 7 nights, okay? Because Wednesdays is my long day in my practice and I see people from literally like 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., all right? Long day in my practice. I love it, but it's a long day. But it's the way that I get to see a lot of people every week because if I didn't, well, then I would regret maybe not being able to try to help more people. So here's the deal, though. I did not do a great job my first couple of years. I literally, it was complete madness, but I opened my practice essentially the same time that my first daughter was born. And anyone who's opened a business or especially building out a practice, like I built the space out from scratch. That took 7 months. Then I had to ramp up and we had a team of like 20 people. It was a lot of work. I mean, it really was. It was worth it. I'm very grateful for that experience, but it did not allow me to always be home for dinner. And I started to regret that. And I went back to my principles. A big life principle of mine is I can understand this and I can see it happening before my eyes, how quickly children grow up. And I did not want to look back and say I wasn't there enough. And again, let me get back to that. It was important for me to be home for dinner. I just feel like that is something that's missing in our community, in our culture more and more every year. So I wanted to sit down with my family. And even as they're just young, I was there then when my second daughter was born. And I would sit down. Again, my oldest daughter would be like 2.5 or so, and my next daughter was born. And yeah, they couldn't really talk, but we could all be there as a family, and they could feel that. They could feel the energy of our family being together. And then I take the weekends off, and we all get to spend that just as family time, all right? I work hard during the week. I'm not going to deny that. I love my work, and I work hard at it, so I'm never going to say that I do not. It's a passion of mine. It would be a regret of mine as well if I did not push hard in my work, right? Because I feel I'm onto something. I feel like I'm able to help this naturopathic, functional medicine, bioregulatory, Ayurvedic medicine. I feel like I'm able to continue to bring that to state of the art. I feel like I'm able to bring Ayurveda to the 21st century. Like these are goals of mine and I love it. It's a passion of mine. I would regret it if I was home with my family all day, right? So like, again, people might say, well, that's not good to say. Well, it's the truth though. I'm living my truth. So my truth is if I did not work for 8 hours a day, and I work more than that, but I would say like I don't work more than that, but I'm at work for a longer period than that, right? Because then I have my own exercise myself. I have my lunch. I have my morning walk, my lunchtime walk, all of those things. But if I did not do that work time, I would regret not putting in that time to the research and to seeing people, okay? So I have to balance the two, but those would be regrets of mine, all right? Now, people have different regrets if they didn't do enough for their community and church and all of those things. Like, again, like everybody has what's important to them. What I need you to figure out are what would your major regrets be, okay? Not everybody is his work. Trust me, I understand that and I get that, nor should it be, right? Yours would be a particular hobby, a field of study, your art, your music. Like those are very, very important to a lot of people. To me, I understand that. I appreciate that, but not for me. Like that's not me. I have like two main things in my life, like really two main things that get all of my energy. My work, which is everything that I do, the podcast, the seeing people in my practice, the mentoring, all of those things, okay? The speaking. And then the other part is my family. And each one of those, that's where I give my energy to. Now, that's probably like 90% of my energy. 10% then goes to other things that I enjoy, like making sure the exercise is there, making sure, whatever. Like, again, like everything else is that 10%. I'm so focused right now on my work and my family that very little else even gets my attention, to be honest. Again, I still do my exercise. I still eat well. I still do the things that I need to for my lifestyle. Because again, if I didn't exercise and I didn't get enough sleep and I didn't eat well, I wouldn't have the energy to put into my work. I wouldn't have the energy to put in my family because I'd be so exhausted on the weekend. I wouldn't be able to give my all to them. So for you, you might have, I need my time for my writing or my art or my creativity. And I get that. Like I totally get that. And that's what you should do. For me, that's just not one area of focus, but I want you to do what you feel is important for you. Another one of mine is travel. But again, like that's vacation time, my family, and I do a decent amount of speaking as well. But even my speaking, this will be the last thing. I just like to give examples from my life because again, I know me well and some of it might resonate with you. And a lot of people do share on Instagram where I read all the comments that they appreciate the example. So I just want to give you a couple. I could literally be gone every single week of the month speaking at some event and all these amazing things that I'm so blessed and grateful to be able to have in my life. But because family and seeing my girls grow up and making sure that I'm a staple in their life is so important to me, and it would be a major regret of mine that if I didn't have that as a focus and I traveled every weekend or every week, that I'd be missing out on that. So I have this balance, and the balance is I only allow myself to travel once per month for 3 days, 4 days maximum. That's it. Now, in the future, when I'll be doing a documentary and things like that in the future, it will take a little bit more travel overseas. But I'm hoping that I might even be able to have my family come for at least some of that, not to some of the more intense areas where I might be, but they'll be there for at least some of that. So that is how I try to create that balance, which brings me to my next point. You're going to suffer essentially major suffering later in life or throughout life of two main things. The suffering of regret, right? The pain of regrets, all right? And that's something that I believe that we can do something about if we're focused on it now. You don't have to make it come to fruition right away. Again, I wasn't great the first couple of years at getting home for dinner, but now I am. I make sure that. Only night I might miss it is Wednesday. That's it, okay? So I'm better at that, and that's what I can do right now. Might it even increase in the future? Sure. Again, like I'll talk more about that in the future, all right? So there's the pain of regret of things that you would not have done. If I was not around on the weekends, if I was not able to take my girls to like sports and dance, I would regret that. That would be a major regret. Why? Because I can never get that back. Really, like I look at it this way. You're like, oh, well, you have your kids into your house till they're 18. You really don't. Because I look back to myself and I say, as a teenager, when I got to be 13, 14 years old, definitely high school, 14 to 18, I was with my friends all the time or in sports. By then, like my parents, their job, whatever they could have done with me was basically done. It really was. Because my friends and my community in sports at that time were a huge influence. So my parents, and I think a lot of us, really have the ability to influence our kids to like 12 years old, 13 years old. Now, should it keep continuing on? Of course. And of course, my parents still had influence. They've influenced to this day. I still respect their opinion and how I watch how they live and all those different things. So I look at it as, okay, well, my two girls are turning from 3 to 5 to 4 to 6 this year. And so, wow. So maybe like my 6-year-old, I have like, however long she's lived now, I get another one of those and that's it. Like, so I look at it in a way where time matters. And a lot of people say, well, that's a little too dramatic. And I get it. Especially if you don't have kids or you just have a different philosophy than me. But that shortness of time allows me then to focus more on the time I need to spend with her and the lessons that I need to teach her. Okay? Again, why? Well, for me, that would be a regret. It would be a regret if she was in her 30s and 40s and I was watching her and just say, wow, I wish I had taught her this. I wish I had gone to more of her events. I wish all of those things, right? And I even understand that I'm in a position now that I'm able to take some of the time off if I need to. And a lot of people are not in that same position. So I have immense gratitude for that as well. And if I'm not able to do it, or if I don't do it, I should say, well, then that's on me. That's really on me. So here comes the second part. The second part can be just as difficult. And that's before you get to the pain of regret, is the pain of self-discipline. And that's what a lot of people are lacking. But I want to make it easier for you right now. Well, what is self-discipline? Let's talk about that first. Self-discipline is making yourself do this, because no one else can make it, you do it, is making yourself do the things that you don't want to do. And they're all the things that you don't want to do in the short term, but if you don't do them in the short term, they lead to long-term regrets. What I mean by that is this. If I did not have the discipline to say, I have another 3 hours of work to do, but if I don't stop now, I won't make it in time for dinner. And if I don't make it in time for dinner, I'll regret that 10, 20 years from now, right? So I have to say the self-discipline to say, I have to cut off the time. It has to be cut off. I have to stop. And that's really hard, because if I don't meet deadlines, then I could sacrifice certain things with my career, right? Or with work or whatever it might be. So you have to look at it this way. Even though you don't want to do certain things, again, tune into tomorrow's show, even though you don't want to necessarily do the things in wellness a lot of times, like, hey, you don't want to give up alcohol for 3 weeks during a specific detox, like the Dr. Cabral detox. You don't want to give those things up, but you want to lose the weight. You want to decrease the inflammation. You want better sleep. You want better mood. You don't want as many hormone imbalances, right? You want to age better. You don't want the autoimmune-based disease. You don't want to get Alzheimer's. But you're unwilling to do things like a seasonal detox, or you're unwilling to eat more of a plant-based diet, or you're unwilling to cut alcohol out the majority of the days of the week, or you're unwilling to stop smoking, or you're unwilling to do any of these things, right? Because it takes self-discipline. And why? Well, you're basically depriving yourself in the short term, but you're playing the long-term game. And you need to live with yourself for those last 20 years, right? Those last 20 years, maybe the last decade, if you're keeping your body stronger longer, which is what I always talk about. And you're saying the what if game, right? What if I did this? What if only this? Oh, I wish the wish game as well. Well, remember, it is those small disciplines that you do on a daily basis that leads to the actions in your life. And it is those actions that allow you to manifest everything that you want in your life. So if you want to lose the weight, well, initially you're going to get into your exercise and you're going to eat better, for sure. Then after that, you're going to start to do things like the Dr. Cabral detox or a functional medicine detox. And if you plateau, well, then you're going to start to run the functional medicine lab test, figure out what your hormonal imbalances are, figure out what the digestive issues are, figure out what the autoimmune issues are, the heavy metals, the et cetera, right? Then you're going to do the things to overcome the candida overgrowth, the intestinal permeability, the SIBO, the parasites, the mercury overload, the aluminum overload, the whatever it is. You're going to take care of those things. You don't want to do it, right? You don't want to follow our sensitive gut guide. You don't want to follow all those things, but you want the results. Because if you don't get the results, you live with having to be overweight, if that's not the choice that you choose to make. And I'm not talking about 10 pounds overweight. I'm talking about 50 pounds overweight. I'm talking about it affecting your day-to-day lifestyle, where you're short of breath, where you can't do the physical activities that you want, right? I work with so many people that can't do the sports, the martial arts, the walking, the hiking, just going out with their friends because it leaves them short of breath, dizzy, out of shape, and they miss out on a lot of life. You don't want that regret, right? Or let's say you want to get in great shape because you want to be a health coach. You want to be someone that inspires others, right? Don't have that regret. Don't let that part of you die because you're unwilling to go through the process, which might not just take place over a 1 week period of time, right? That might take place over weeks and months and maybe even a year or two, right? Don't be unwilling to go through that process or not go through that process because it's going to take a little bit of time. And yes, there's going to be some suffering because you need to eliminate certain things in your life that have led to where you are right now. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's social situations. sometimes it's work-based environments, and oftentimes it's relationships around us, like whatever it might be, right? We need to sometimes let those things go. I talked about it before on a podcast of taking your own little sabbatical. It doesn't have to be forever in order to get your life right as well. But I honestly believe this as well, that self-discipline is a form of self-love. And people are going to say, that's really strange. Like, why is creating self-discipline and why is creating short-term suffering to do the things that you don't want to do? You don't want to give up smoking. You don't want to stop drinking alcohol because it's really enjoyable. You don't want to stop those things and it causes suffering, right? But it's a form of self-love. Why? Because then you're going to be able to do the actions which lead you to what you want in life so that you do not have the regrets in the long term. That's really what it's all about. Hopefully today's episode was helpful. If you'd like me to go more in depth on this topic, I would of course be happy to, but that's our time for today. So thank you so much for tuning into another Motivation and Mindset Monday. I appreciate each and every one of your listens. Thank you so much for the reviews on iTunes. And as always, if this show is helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stephencabral.com/courses.